Let's talk about sleep. The very first question on the questionnaire is sleep. Did you get 7+ hours of sleep last night? The research is pretty clear at this point. You need sleep. Some people think that they don't need sleep. They think that they operate pretty well without sleep. And some recent studies show that there's only about 3% of the population are the type of people who can function on 5-6 hours of sleep without any, health, degradation or anything like that. Now, you might be able to get 5 or 6 hours of sleep and operate in your day and feel fine mentally, but the things that you can't track are your immune response, your inflammation response, how well you're recovering, things you don't really know. Sleep is so deep-rooted in every facet of our lives and how it helps us, you can't even track half of it. So if you just wake up after 5 or 6 hours and you're like, no, I feel pretty good, that's probably the worst marker ever. There are so many other things going on with sleep. And like I said, the studies are pretty clear. You need 7+ hours of sleep. We're going to say 7 to 9 hours with no disruptions. And you're going to want as much quality sleep as possible. So you want a really dark room. You want a really cool room. You don't want any lights on, like LEDs or anything like that. Try to really black it out. Get the temperature as low as you can comfortably. They say the ideal sleeping temperature is somewhere between 65 to 68 for most human beings. And that is what you should be striving for. Get in some really good sleep habits. You'll see that bullet there. Sleep as close to normal sun and moon cycles as possible. And so that's just circadian rhythm, guys. We're going to talk a lot more about that in part 3 of week 1 here. But really just trying to get as close to that cycle as possible and keeping it consistent. So are you able to go to bed around 9 to 9:30 every night and wake up at 5 to 5:30? That's not ideal for everyone. But can you keep it consistent, whether that's 10 o'clock, 6 o'clock? You need to be shooting for those 7 to 8 hours. If you're shooting for 7 hours of sleep, then you want to probably try to spend 8 hours in bed or 7.5 just to make sure that you have enough time to fall asleep and, you're going to actually get all of that sleep uninterrupted. So quality sleep is the most important thing you can do for energy levels, for balancing out your hormones, for making sure that you feel full from the foods that you're eating, that you're absorbing the fuels properly, that we're going to be talking about. Sleep cannot be overlooked. And this is a very hard one for people to do, depending on your schedule, depending on your lifestyle. So this is probably the biggest ask in EO3 Elements is dialing in your sleep. But like I said, you guys most likely know this stuff. And so we just have to hit it on again. Get your sleep, get it done. And don't mess with it. Make sure that it's consistent. Weekends, consistent. Weekdays, consistent. Be super consistent. Get your sleep and move on. All right, now let's get to hydration and mineral balance. I am going to take a sip of water, and then we'll get back into it. All right, notice when we did just the recovery game, we just called it hydration. And we're looking for athletes to consume 50 to 60% of their body weight in ounces, body weight in pounds, and then in ounces of water each day as their baseline, okay? That's just the baseline. And we used to say just hydration. Now we really need to focus on mineral balance because that's something that's getting lost. If you are just chugging a ton of water all day, then you are peeing a lot, and it's very clear you're not holding on to that water as much as you could be or should be. I'm not saying that what you're doing is irrelevant. It just, you could be more optimal. Remember, that's kind of what we're talking about this course, how to be more optimal. And so you want to make sure that you have that mineral balance. A really good habit to start getting into in the morning. A lot of our athletes do this or have heard about it. Adding some sea salt to your water in the morning with some lemon, a really great morning habit. So anything that I know is going to be a little bit more challenging for me to do in a day. So maybe that's making sure I get the appropriate amount of water. Maybe that is getting the right amount of protein in a day. then you need to start your day off with large amounts of those things. So I try to consume, and 99% of the time I do, 32 ounces of water within the first hour of waking. That way I'm already down a quarter gallon. The rest of my day gets a lot easier in being able to hit that target, after having woken up from not drinking any water for 8 hours. Now I'm down a quarter gallon. It's a really good way to start the day. And going throughout the day thinking about that mineral balance, making sure that you're getting all the right electrolytes, some magnesium, calcium, sodium, everything. You want to get those, potassium, get all those in your water. So you can supplement with those things, or you could just make sure that you're getting them in your food. Typically green leafy vegetables will help you do that. Adding, like I said, a little bit of sea salt to your water is really perfect. And those things are going to be really great habits to get into. Now, going to some of these bullets, I just straight up say auto-regulation is bullshit. And this is a personal opinion. This one is not necessarily based off of, if you're not really deep into this hydration world, there's a lot of debate right now about overhydration, underhydration, and auto-regulation is just you drink when you're thirsty, right? And that should be enough. But I don't believe nor do I think any human right now is capable of auto-regulation. Maybe if you're a really advanced athlete and have all of these things dialed in and have for a long time, auto-regulation might work for you, but auto-regulation doesn't seem to work in any other form of our diets or life. We don't auto-regulate on almost anything, from eating Twizzlers to cake to too much of something. We don't auto-regulate well as humans. So I'm not going to go venture out and say, if you only drink when you're thirsty, you're probably fine. We have really busy lifestyles, schedules, all these things. So I'm going to say auto-regulation is bullshit. You need to be tracking your water every single day, making sure that you're getting enough, and just making it a habit on a daily basis. So do start tracking it. And like I said, a good starting point is 1/2 ounce per pound of body weight per day. That's your starting point. There's a lot of other stuff that you need to factor in there. Humidity, temperature, activity, timing, and quality are all considerations for hydration. And like I said, staying on top of those electrolytes with your hydration each day. Typically, from what I've read, you can't really consume more than probably 32 ounces of water in an hour and expect your kidneys to properly filter all that. So that is about the most you should be drinking in an hour, and not really wanting to go over what we're recommending that you do in the hydration mineral balance. So I drink about 1 gallon of water per day. 50 to 60% is kind of my starting point, but then I start factoring in things like humidity, temperature, especially here in Texas, how much I sweat, how much I'm outside. Then I push that up to about 1 gallon, and I'm making sure that I'm on top of my minerals during that time frame as well. So cellular hydration has more to do with factors outside of liquids such as sleep, energy, reaction to stress, and hormonal profile. So really keep those things in consideration. Sleep, all of this ties together in a lot of different ways. Now dehydration, it keeps you from operating at high efficiency, including lack of mental acuity in the late afternoon, increases in heart rate during simple tasks, and waking up groggy. So let me foot stomp those things real quick for you again on hydration. If you are reaching for coffee late afternoon and just not feeling very mentally ready, your mental acuity seems a little bit off later in the day, you're probably a little bit dehydrated. Now, unfortunately, you can't just chug a glass of water in the afternoon like you can coffee to get you going. You need to be on top of it earlier in the day to see the benefits later in the afternoon. So keep that in mind with dialing in your mental acuity. And then also, if you are just doing some really simple stuff and you notice your heart rate's getting jacked, probably a little bit dehydrated. And then if you wake up super groggy, you're probably pretty dehydrated. And, the status of hydration is super important for our muscles and blood, and urine is not the only indicator of your hydration. So it's important for many different reasons. Now, a few other points before we move on. If you're chronically dehydrated, you may be storing too much water. So that may happen if your body is trained to not get a lot of water. It's going to try and hold on to water as much as it can. So you may be holding excess water weight without really knowing it. And optimal hydration means detoxification and improved gastrointestinal function. So you want your digestive system to be working better. You want your body to get rid of all the things that it doesn't need. That's all I mean by detoxification, getting rid of the things that it doesn't need in there. Your body is great at doing this process on its own. It just needs some water to help it along. And we recommend against drinking a lot of water within 20 to 30 minutes of meals. So you don't need to be in the habit of chugging a bunch of water during a meal or right before or right after a meal. Your body doesn't actually need that. It digests a little bit better when it's not full of water. So keeping that in mind, and we'll talk more about that here in just a second when we get into digestion. But wake up, drink your water, sea salt, lemon, best thing that you can do. And timing of your hydrations does matter relative to activity. So after you finish a really sweaty session, you are going to want to replenish that. You could get in the habit of weighing yourself before you train and after you train, see how much liquid you actually lose, and try replacing that amount after you train. So hydration and mineral balance, probably one of the most important topics right there, sleep and hydration. If you were to only dial in those two things, you would be pretty dialed in moving forward. Now, nutrition, we're going to keep this one simple. Meat plus veggies in 2 meals today. That is what we're looking for. That gets you 1 point if you're making this more of a game. And I say meat, but if we do have any vegetarians here or vegans, I really mean protein. So while I do believe you should eat meat, I don't think that you need to be eating excessive amounts of meat or only meat. I'm kind of in the middle there. I think that you should have some quality, keyword quality meats for protein, eating a lot of vegetables. Those are things that we can all agree on to some level. And whether or not you want to eat meat, that's fine, but make sure you're having a high protein source and vegetables in at least 2 meals per day. And you really need those vegetables, guys. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that because you know it. You already know that's true, but micronutrients are just as important, if not more important, than macronutrients for the overall function at a cellular level. So make sure you're getting as many micronutrients as you can, green leafy vegetables, and getting those in the right amounts each day. So at least 2 big servings is what we're urging you to do. But we're not looking for perfection. If we were looking for perfection, we'd be talking about how many servings of fruit, how many servings of vegetables, what each plate should look like. We're not trying to stress on any of that right now. We just want 2 meals to include high protein and vegetables. And that's actually pretty difficult for a lot of people I've found over the years talking to a lot of athletes. That seems to be a challenge. So we'll leave it right there and see how challenging it is for you. If you're already doing that, congratulations. That's awesome. But make sure you're doing those things. All right, so blood flow. So what is blood flow? What do I mean by that? So blood flow is just light aerobic work. This can be a walk, a jog, and it's for 10 minutes outside of your normal training. So if you train today, it has to be completely outside of that. So maybe you're doing a walk with your kids, maybe you're walking your dog, or maybe you could do this at the end of your training session, just like a cool down walk. Some of these things can get overlapped. Very, very important. So you can do this however you'd like to, but blood flow is most often overlooked in how much it helps a person recover. So almost every recovery method or product out there is aimed at manipulation of blood flow. So they're talking about, get in a cold bath, a cold shower, putting on these electro-stimulating devices, all these things. All they're doing is manipulating your blood flow to some capacity or degree. That's it. That's what these things are trying to do. They're just trying to target it. So you put on these TENS units around a muscle, and it's just making your muscles pump blood in and out of that area. It's like, flushing that area with blood. Now, sometimes that may be more convenient to sit there while you're at work and have a TENS unit just operating on you, but it's pretty easy. It's pretty simple. It's actually free to just go move your body in some way, shape, or form. And this can be very specific. Like if you're having a nagging shoulder injury and you want to get more blood flow into that area, maybe you do 100 presses with a 5-pound weight. Something really light, and you're not trying to get stronger here. You're just trying to get blood in and out of that area. So blood flow is very important for recovery, and it's very simple. It's very easy, and the key word here is light. It may be just walking for some of you. You could be a really advanced athlete and you think that walking is a complete waste of your time. You're wrong. Just go for a walk. Go for a really, how I do it specifically, I go for a very light bike ride. Very light bike ride. My heart rate does not get super elevated. I do it for 10 or 15 minutes almost every day. And I do this outside of my normal training. Even then when I'm doing cycling in my training, this is normally a completely different time or it's a different route. It's just very different. So make sure that you get the blood flow going. It's very important not only for recovery from exercise, it's just important for life. Your blood needs to flow throughout your body. And you could do this first thing when you wake up. You could do this after training, however you want to, but do not overlook getting some blood flow outside of normal training. All right, sun. We added this to the recovery game recently, now a very important staple in EO3 Elements, and it says, did you get adequate sun exposure today? Now, this is kind of a loaded topic because I can't tell you what adequate exposure is for you specifically. You do want to expose as much of your body to the sun as possible to get the most production of vitamin D from your skin. The sun touches your skin, your body produces vitamin D on its own. You don't need to supplement with vitamin D. It's very easy to get depending on where you live. If you don't live somewhere you get sun, maybe you want to think about supplementing. But here's the deal. Vitamin D is different for everybody. So I am very fair-skinned. It probably only takes me about 10 to 15 minutes with my shirt off and shorts to get all the vitamin D that I need in a day. If you have darker skin, or much darker skin than me, it could take 30, 40 minutes. Maybe you tan really well. Your body's not as affected by the sun. It's just going to be different for each person. So just keep that in mind. So my time frame might not be the same as yours. Just keep that in mind when you're getting the adequate amount of sun, because we all know too much sun, burning your skin, bad. That's a bad thing. Skin cancer. We don't need to talk about that too much. There's just too much sun, bad thing. Too little won't do anything. So you need to get that adequate, that right amount of sun exposure each day. So why? Really, the sun produces vitamin D and it improves immune function. The better your immune system is working, the better you're going to recover, the better human you're going to be. You really want to have a really good immune system. Helps everything operate better. And now they're doing a lot of studies on athletes with vitamin D specifically, and the results are pretty awesome. That's also why we started including it as part of Garage Gym Athlete Training, is because vitamin D supplementation and exposure from the sun is showing to reduce the rate of injury and also improve performance, both anaerobic power and muscular strength. These are done studies that have been done on multiple different athlete types, populations, and this is what they're coming up with. So vitamin D is very important, not only to operating, like I said, from immune function as a human being, but also as an athlete. It's going to help you perform better. Next, we have digestion. Now, digestion, pretty simple, but I'd say this is where most athletes, most everyone is missing it. Is chew your food, smell your food, and limit liquids during eating. So we did talk about that. We don't need 20 minutes before, 20 minutes after, or even during. We don't need excessive amounts of liquids. Now, you can consume liquid. You just don't need excessive amounts. If you're drinking 30 to 40 ounces of water with your meal, that's probably a little bit too much. And so you can drink something with your meal, but just try not to go overboard with it. So smell your food first when you get your food, whatever form it's in, really smell it. This really starts and kicks the digestion process. You can even feel it in your mouth sometimes. If you smell your food first, you can feel what your body's doing with secreting the different enzymes ready for digestion. So smell that food and then chew your food. You're supposed to chew it about 30 to 35 times. I really think that that's food dependent. Obviously, if you're eating applesauce, probably not going to chew that 30 times. Meat, that's going to be very important to chew it properly. But I see a lot of athletes and people in general taking 3-4 bites of food and then swallowing it with water, almost like they're swallowing a pill. This makes it much harder to digest. You're not getting as much out of your food, and you're not nourishing your body very well. So do smell your food, do chew your food. Like I said, smell during the cooking process starts the process of saliva and digestion. Sit down, chew food slowly, and just try to be, stimulation free. You don't need a bunch of loud music or anything. Just take your food, try to think about your food a little bit different, not just this, this is the fuels course, and we're trying to get you to use your food as fuel, but you can't only look at it as like this fuel that you can just throw in and it's going to work no matter what. It needs to be broken down properly. The fuel needs to be used properly, and that's going to start with how you move your mouth and smelling your food. So really do that as much as possible. Now, relying on false energy such as caffeine means food absorption may be suffering. Again, if you're struggling towards the back end of the day with your mental acuity, mental energy, which is also crushing your motivation, a few things you need to be looking at. Did you get enough hydration early on in the day and even the day before? Have you been chewing and smelling your food properly up to this point, during the day or the day before, because digestion and hydration really work more than that day specific. It really goes the day behind you. So if you are having that afternoon lull, which I know a lot of people do, I used to, I don't anymore, you need to really start thinking about your digestion, your hydration. All right. Meal timing. So meal timing, you could just think of this as fasting. I'm not going to say that everyone has to fast for 16 hours, 18 hours protocol. That's not really what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you have to fast, but I would say try to give your body at least a 12-hour break. That's not hard for most people. If you were to stop eating around 7 p.m. and not eat again till 7 a.m., that's not too crazy. So that should be pretty easy to do. If you're a more advanced athlete, that means you're probably going to need calories. You might need to go glycolytic. You might need different fuels. We'll talk about those things and how that works. But if you just pretty much operate with the sun, sun and moon cycle, kind of that circadian rhythm idea I talked about earlier, if you just kind of stop eating when the sun's going down, start eating when the sun goes up, because you need a lot of calories. And I'm talking about a more advanced athlete, maybe training more than one time per day or longer training sessions each day. That's a good strategy for you. For everyone else, 16 hours is a great window to shoot for. So going those full 16 hours of fasting, there are a lot of great benefits in doing that, but not necessary for everyone. So my real challenge is going to be 12 hours. Can you fast for at least 12 hours in a day? Just giving your body a break from having to constantly digest food. This is really going to help with mental acuity as well. So work on that. And once you can, if you can dial it up to 16 hours, that really does help your brain function a little bit better. If it's not constantly having to digest food, more of your energy can be diverted to your brain functioning. And we'll talk about how to do that with some fuels later in the course as well. All right, fuels. Fuels, warm up and cool down. So this is really simple, guys. Did you complete a 5-minute warm up and cool down during training? Please don't skip your warm ups. Don't skip them. It's really going to help with injury reduction. And then cool down, kind of going back to that blood flow strategy, and this is where you can combine. If you wanted to, how I'm doing it right now to combine multiple is after my training session is completely over, I hop on a bike, shirt off, riding in the sun, and so I am doing my cool down. I'm getting my 10 minutes extra of blood flow work. I'm doing 10 to 15 minutes. My shirt's off on my bike. I'm just riding through my neighborhood, real leisure pace. I'm also getting my sun vitamin D. So you can overlap a lot of these things, so you don't have to do 3 or 4 different things in a day. You can kind of stack them and get them all done at once. So something to keep in mind. But that cool down, warming up and cooling down is really going to accelerate your recovery, going back to the blood flow principles, and it's also proven to reduce your injury amount. So do warm up, do cool down, and don't skip those things. Now, down regulation. This is something new that we don't talk about as much, but we all know it's important. This can be meditation, this can be breathing, this can be limiting nighttime light exposure, all of these things. So stress response from lifestyle and anxiety may change gut composition and food absorption. So your digestion can be affected from how stressed out you are. And we're going to talk a lot more about cortisol and other hormones and how your lifestyle, training, and everything else factors into those. But down regulation is super important, especially towards the end of the day. So if you can meditate, breathe, and limit light exposure at the end of the night, it's really going to help with your cortisol levels. It's going to help you sleep better, going to help you recover better, and help you think better. So down regulate at night. If you're not familiar with box breathing, you could get into that. Box breathing is 5-second inhale, 5-second hold, 5-second exhale, 5-second hold. Repeat that process 3, 4, 5 rounds. You can get some different breathing or meditation apps. And I say meditation or breathing because I'm not really getting into what the meditative side of things can do, from a more, I'm not going spiritual or philosophical or anything. We're just talking about straight physiological. What can calming your system down by doing some nasal breathing, what can it do? And it can help you a lot. So down regulate at the end of the day, maybe right before bed, do some meditation or some breathing exercises. And try, if you can get some blue blockers, block that blue light. Don't be on a screen for 30 minutes right before bed. And if you are, try to use some sort of app that's going to take the blue light out. There's F.Lux is a great one I know I have on my Mac. Also getting some blue light blockers, really great. So try not to blast your eyes with a bunch of blue light right before bed, a little too stimulating, and then down regulate as much as you can. So that concludes the 9 different points. And you can read through it in the book, but here's the main takeaway. Start using EO3 Elements every day starting today. I really challenge you over the next 3 weeks of this course specifically to print out EO3 Elements. We have a small little printout that you can use or put on your phone as a background. That way you just are reminded to constantly do these things every single day. Now, if you're one of our Garage Gym athletes and you're like, well, I'll just do the recovery game, remember, these are a little bit different. There's 9 of them. There's more. There's different aspects that we're hitting. So use these EO3 Elements. It's a little bit more robust than just the recovery game. Like I said, this is the life game. So dialing in your lifestyle parameters is the biggest first step you can take in improving your mental acuity and balancing energy levels. This is it, guys. I talked about it at the beginning. I foot stomped it. I'm going to foot stomp it again. You need to be dialing in these elements. Very, very, very important. And then I say, furthermore, without these things, and balance, your body will not be able to properly utilize some of the strategies we'll teach later in the course. If you're not digesting your food, if you're not hydrated, if any of these things are not lined up, you'll get some benefit to the fuels course later on, but you're not going to get all the benefits. You're not going to be level 10. You're not going to be feeling awesome. You're just going to be like, oh, yeah, I guess I kind of noticed a difference. You need to dial in all of these elements because that's where we have to start for any of this stuff to work. And putting the right fuels in a car with no wheels is useless. So I could teach you the coolest stuff on the planet Earth. Maybe that's great for you to go teach someone else, but if you don't have the elements in there, you basically have no wheels on your car. Doesn't matter. All right, guys, so today, the big takeaway, start EO3 Elements. Tomorrow, when the other videos come out, start with the week 1 checklist. It's in the Fuels book. You can go ahead and start looking through those things. We're going to talk about all of those things in way more detail, so that is coming. Today only, I want you to start on the EO3 Elements. And my only takeaway for today, EO3 Elements, get that done. Start working on that. Now, tomorrow, we could start with a week 1 checklist, Fuels book, getting into the rest of that after you've watched the other shorter videos in this module. But today, EO3 Elements, and start working on that for the next 3 weeks. Go ahead and start planning out when you could do these things, how you could do them, and get the EO3 Elements dialed in. Maybe go ahead and circle which ones you're good at, which ones you struggle at. Do you need to track your hydration? Are you pretty good without tracking? Nutrition, do you need to do some meal planning, so on and so forth. Get these elements dialed in, and then the rest of everything we have in the Fuels book you can tackle later. So that is the intro for part 1 here. Go ahead and start the EO3 Elements and let us know if you have any questions.